In this video, you will learn how to photograph kingfishers with minimal and/or beginner equipment. My main goal is to show you that you don't need high-end, expensive gear to get beautiful photos of this small, colorful bird. I will be using Nikon's entry-level crop sensor camera, the Z30, but the settings and techniques shown can be applied to any other brand's camera. The lens of choice is Sigma 150 to 600 mm, a very popular lens amongst wildlife photographers that delivers great results for very reasonable money. To further prove my point, I also won't be using the camouflage tent, and I will just sit behind the camera covered with a cheap camouflage blanket. I will also be using my Triopo tripod, which is a very affordable option that I bought when I was just starting out and that I keep using to this day. One last thing. I've already made a video on the topic of photographing and filming the kingfishers a while ago, so if you're interested in my approach with some fancier gear for filming and sound recording as well, check it out after this video. Alright, let's get to it. The first step is, of course, the location. I found this particular spot while exploring the area and filming the Wild Walk video. I noticed that this spot has a nice view of the river, so I came back another time to find out which animals can be found here. I just sat down with the camera in my hands, stayed still, and quietly observed nature. In a short while, I spotted many ducks, nutria, frogs, and lastly, the kingfisher. When looking for kingfishers, pay attention to the rivers and streams where there are parts with shallow, slow water. They will be sitting on a nearby branch and diving into the water fishing for food. Another tip is to listen for their calls. I find it very common to be able to hear them before seeing them, and with such an advantage, you can quickly point the camera in the direction of the sound and then stay completely still so you don't scare it away. First, listen for these calls. And then look for a small blue and orange bird flying low and close to the water. Okay, now that you've found the calm part of the river, where the kingfisher regularly visits the same dry branches and dives for fish, you need to take a photo of it. Approach your spot slowly and quietly. Set down the tripod and make sure it's standing firmly. I always make sure it's also leveled. Put your camera on it, make sure it's balanced and not falling forward or backwards, and tighten it in place. Next, I will take you through the settings, which I recommend for most situations. Again, your camera's menu might be different, and certain options might have a different name, but the basics stay the same. I have my camera in M or manual mode, which lets you control all the settings, and the camera won't decide on them for itself when you don't want it to. First, I set my ISO to auto. What this means is that the camera will adjust the sensitivity to light entering it and assure the correct exposure. In other words, the photos won't be too bright or too dark. Next is the aperture. As you can see, I am lowering the f number to f6.3. That is the limit of this lens, but others might have the lowest aperture number at f2.8, f4, f8, etc. Essentially, by setting the lowest aperture number, I am opening up the lens, letting in more light and making the background more blurred at the same time. More light is good, because you're most likely shooting at a time of a day when there isn't lots of light available, and also because more light means you will shoot at a lower ISO value, thus having less noise in the picture. The third reason has to do with the shutter speed, about which I will talk in a minute. The last thing I want to say about the aperture is that you might want to close it down, or go to the bigger numbers, for two reasons. One is to get more detail in the background, and the other is to ensure sharper photos. Lenses always produce sharper photos when they are stepped down a few clicks or thirds of a stop, so you might want to take advantage of that, but keep in mind that you are trading the amount of light gathered by doing so. Okay, the third setting that I will alter is the shutter speed. Here I set it to 1/1000th of a second because I want the shutter to stay open for as little time as possible, thereby freezing the motion in the photos. Again, this is generally a good shutter speed to use, but if you want, you can tweak it in a certain situations to get even better results. If you only want to capture the kingfisher while sitting on a perch, you could easily set it to a slower shutter speed, for example 1/400th of a second, and still get sharp photos while letting in more light and photograph at a lower ISO value. On the contrary, if you wish to photograph it in a flight or while it's diving into the water, then you should set it to 1/2000th of a second, 1/4000th of a second, or even shorter if the camera allows it. But do keep in mind that it also means less light available to the camera. My camera is set to single point autofocus, meaning it will focus on the part of the frame that is covered by a small square on the screen. I am using the continuous focusing mode. Your camera might have a different name for that, but essentially this means that the camera continues focusing for as long as your shutter button is half pressed or the AF on button is pressed. The last setting I will talk about is the release mode. Here I have it set to S or single frame, which means the camera will take one photo when the shutter button is pressed. Later, I will change it to continuous high speed, so the camera takes many photos one after the other when I hold the shutter button pressed. I recommend you use the continuous release mode because it will help you capture more photos in the moment when the bird will show up and you can choose the best one later. Great, now that this is all covered, I will cover myself with a camouflage blanket. This is an affordable option. It cost me 30 euros. It won't hide me completely, but the kingfishers in my area are not that shy, so it will suffice. Alternatively, you could also hide in some tall grass or behind the branches. One last tip before I concentrate on photographing kingfishers. Always prepare an extra battery or two and another memory card somewhere within your hand's reach, because if you will be waiting for a few hours, the battery will eventually drain and you will want to replace it while making as little noise and movement as possible. And if you're lucky and the bird gives you enough opportunities to photograph it, you might fill up the memory card rather quickly, so a spare one is a good idea. Okay, now all that is left is to wait here, listen and look for the kingfisher. I will show you what my camera is seeing and the photos that I get when it shows up. Ooh, there it is, there it is. Look at it, it's back again. I'm very happy with the shots that I am getting. Today is a really good day. The kingfisher is very active. Just look at all these colors. The blue and orange stand out so nicely against the green background. Oh, the light is just gorgeous. Alright, the sun is getting really low, so I don't have enough light to keep shooting. Now I will head home and edit the photos that you already saw through the video. To sum it up, the gear is important, but you should not feel limited by it, because what matters even more is having an idea, a good location, the correct approach, and the knowledge to take amazing photos. Comment down below if you want me to make another video with even more basic gear. I am up for a challenge. Are you? Thank you so much for coming along today. See you next time.